Stitch this with a fact so ridiculous you didn't believe it until you looked it up yourself. I'll go first.
Nero, the former emperor of Rome, had a first wife, divorced her, then beheaded her, found a second wife, and then brought his first wife's head back to Rome to make the second wife jealous. And then he ended up killing his second wife by kicking her to death when she was still pregnant. And then after that, he was like, I really miss her. I wish I didn't do that. And then he saw a little servant boy that kind of looked like his second wife. And his pee-pee off and made him dress up like his second wife and be his second wife. He also did the dirty with his mom because I think she wanted to be empress as well, and that's how she thought she could get it. And then he ended up killing her too.
Stitch this with a fact so ridiculous you didn't believe it until you looked it up yourself.
Truthfully, I can do a series on this. But the one is in the state of New Jersey, if someone was to try to rob you and they injured themselves, they can sue you.
Stitch this with a fact so ridiculous you didn't believe it until you looked it up yourself.
The United States Department of Defense buys more explosive devices than any other organization on the planet, which isn't a shock. But the second highest number of explosives purchased are by Disney.
Stitch this with a fact so ridiculous you didn't believe it until you looked it up yourself.
So a dolphin's ejaculate is so powerful that if it finishes in your mouth, it can literally decapitate you. Okay, I'm being very serious. Okay, you literally just blow your shit out the back of your skull, dude, and just all over your friends who are just cheering for you like 30 seconds before, dude. Okay, so I wasn't gonna cry, dude. It was a dare, Greg, dude. It wasn't even that serious, dude. You fucking legend, dude. Oh, Wikipedia doesn't know shit, dude. Anybody can write something on Wikipedia, dude. I'm sorry, Greg's dad. If he wasn't so good at sucking dick, dude, maybe he'd still be here.
Stitch this with a fact so ridiculous you didn't believe it until you looked it up yourself.
No.
Stitch this with a fact so ridiculous you didn't believe it until you looked it up yourself.
66% of people that cannot read proficiently by the end of 4th grade end up in jail or on welfare. That means they're either in jail or don't have jobs. And we say to wait to see if they outgrow reading problems.
Stitch this with a fact so ridiculous you didn't believe it until you looked it up yourself.
So I just found this out yesterday in my history class, and let me tell you guys, I'm bewildered. Let me get into the video. So, in a research conducted in Nevada in 2003, it was discovered that you get no bitches.
Stitch this with a fact so ridiculous you didn't believe it until you looked it up yourself.
Female tears lower testosterone in men who smell them. This experiment was done at the Weizmann Institute in Israel. Even if they dripped saline water down a female's cheek, there was no testosterone lowering effect. But even if the tears were in a petri dish, any male who smelled them had an instant drop in both arousal and testosterone level. Chemical warfare. So literally, if you make a woman cry, it makes you less of a man. I mean, physically.
Stitch this with a fact so ridiculous you didn't believe it until you looked it up yourself.
So there was a study done in France a few years ago that found correlation between the amount of hairdressers and salons in the city to pigeons that had missing toes or feet. They basically found out that pigeons were getting their toes and feet wrapped up in human hair, which was then cutting off the circulation to their feet, and that's how they were losing their toes and their feet. So that's why in London, Paris, New York, whatever city you're in, you see pigeon walk around on stumps, and it's because they got their fucking feet wrapped up in human hair.
Stitch this with a fact so ridiculous you didn't believe it until you looked it up yourself. I'll go first.
I've seen a lot of people talk about Ben & Jerry's, but no one has mentioned that Ben of Ben & Jerry's has no sense of taste or smell. And the only pleasure that Ben gets from food is from the texture, which is why their ice cream is so chunky, because that's just the way Ben likes it.
Stitch this with a fact so ridiculous you didn't believe it until you looked it up yourself.
Did you know the male penis is shaped like a mushroom for a reason? Do you want to know what that reason is? It's so that while trying to reproduce... What the fuck are you doing? Fuck. The reason is so that during sex, it scoops out other men's semen of the female vagina. Now you know.
Stitch this with a fact so ridiculous you didn't believe it until you looked it up yourself.
Okay, so this one kind of messed up my childhood. But now that I know, you're going to have to know too. You know the pirates that wear the eye patch, right? I always thought that, they must have gone into a good old sword fight over booty or something like that. And they lost an eye. That's what I thought. Like every pirate lost an eye because they got into some sort of a sword fight, right? Wrong. So the fact is that the one eye was being prepared to see in the dark. So when if they ever had to go below the deck, that eye was already adjusted to instantly seeing in the dark. So they would just move the eye patch from that eye to the other eye. Like, what? I told you, it messed with my childhood.
Stitch this with a fact so ridiculous you didn't believe it until you looked it up yourself.
Oh God, I've been waiting for this one. Okay, so the University of Pennsylvania, which is a private Ivy League school, had conducted a study that showed that the human brain at times believes that we can do something that we actually physically can't do. And the example it gave us is that humans cannot smile and scrunch their nose at the same exact time. People always thought they could do it, but physically they can't, right? See, you just did it right now. Look at, we're just being so cute together. I'm joking. I'm kidding. That was totally a joke. This is the actual fact, is that the show The Office is completely overrated. All right, go argue with your mom, not me. I'm sorry.
Stitch this with a fact so ridiculous you didn't believe it until you looked it up yourself.
All right, I bet y'all didn't know this one. So, your lips are made out of the same tissue as your asshole. So whenever you go like this, that's why it looks like an asshole.
Stitch this with a fact so ridiculous you didn't believe it until you looked it up yourself.
So I found this out in my archaeology class last week, but the captain of the Titanic was actually gay. So they know this because once they found the Titanic, they found the captain's room, and they actually found what he wrote etched into the wall as the Titanic was sinking. I have my iPad because I don't want to get this wrong. Hey, Slay Mamas, pussy butt purr, boots the house down to the ocean floor. Wig snatched due to the current. Period.
Stitch this with a fact so ridiculous you didn't believe it until you looked it up yourself.
I've known about this fact for a while, but it always gets people when I tell them about it. The only reason people who take pill contraceptive have a placebo pill in their birth control pack is because the Catholic Church wanted it there. Get? If you don't believe me, stitch this and look it up for yourself. It's true. When birth control was becoming prominent, the Pope didn't like the fact that birth control didn't have a woman bleed naturally. Any OB will tell you that a continuous cycle of hormones is much more healthy for you than stopping and having breakthrough bleeding. Now, obviously, this depends on the birth control. I'm not saying that you shouldn't take your placebo pill, but my OB basically told me that if I don't want to, I don't have to have a period. Thank Jesus for your pain. Hail Satan, everybody.
Stitch this with a fact so ridiculous you didn't believe it until you looked it up yourself.
They don't take your kidney out when you get a transplant. They put the new one on top of the old one.
Stitch this with a fact so ridiculous you didn't believe it until you looked it up yourself. I'll go first.
So apparently when companies like, let's just say Walmart, for example, at the end of your purchase, they'll say, hey, do you want to round up your total to donate to Cancer Association of America? And we'll go, yeah, sure, that's fine, right? So what's really going on? Okay, let me break it down to you. Walmart already donated a specific amount of money to the Cancer Association, right? And they got a tax write-off for it, right? Okay, cool. Now they're saying, I want my money back. So they gonna have me and you donate $1 here and there, $5 here and there, but our money is not going to said charity. Our money is going back into Walmart's pocket for the money that they already gave to the charity and got a tax write-off for. And they are hoping and praying that we donate so much money that they end up making money. So they gave away $500 and they just made $10,000.
Stitch this with a fact so ridiculous you didn't believe it until you looked it up yourself.
That there have only been 4 black governors in American history. Territories don't count. Sorry, Marion Barry. But yeah, there have only been 4 black governors in American history. The first was PBS Pinchback. He was elected to the great state of Louisiana. And ooh, it's thundering outside. They got some weather today, Jesus. Lord have mercy. It's gonna rain. But yeah, there've only been 4 black governors. The first was PBS Pinchback in Louisiana. He served from December 9th, 1872 to January 13th, 1873. We didn't get another black governor until Douglas Wilder in 1990. And what's crazier than that? We've only had 11 black senators. Crazy, right?
Stitch this with a fact so ridiculous you didn't believe it until you looked it up yourself.
The old American president, Abraham Lincoln, actually invented rap music. I got told about this about a week ago and I did not believe it at all. And then I researched it and rap music can directly be traced back to him. When he died in 1865, they went through all of his documents, found a notebook and read out the contents to a big audience. One of the main messages inside of it that spread like wildfire said, "Lick my neck, my back, my pussy and..."
Stitch this with a fact so ridiculous you didn't believe it until you looked it up yourself. I'll go first. While preparing to film the movie Titanic, James Cameron took so many dives to the bottom of the ocean to the site of the wreckage that when it was all said and done, he had spent more time on the Titanic than the actual passengers did before the ship sank. Stitch this with a fact so ridiculous you didn't believe it until you looked it up yourself. I'll go first.
Zippers have locks. Let me explain. Okay, zipper up goes down. Zipper down does not move.